Crystal, and welcome back to my kitchen. Recently, I've been experimenting with an Instant Pot. I got this machine because I want to try it in my RV to see how it works. So first I have to use it at home so I know how to use it, right? So what I'm going to try tonight is a recipe that I tried once before. I found it online. I'll put the link in the description below. And it is called salmon tikka masala, and then I make rice on the side to go with it. But I don't have any salmon. Last time I tried this recipe with some fresh blowfish that we caught here in New Jersey. And this time it's winter, and I pulled some fresh striper that I had vacuum sealed and frozen. I pulled that out of my freezer. So I'm going to try making striper tikka masala. And if you're not from the Northeast and you're not sure what striper is, it's striped bass. We caught this just a few months ago on our boat. So I'm going to do it in stages. It's really not very hard. We're going to make a marinade, and we're going to put the fish in the marinade in a stainless steel bowl about this big. And for my Instant Pot, what I have is a little rack. And what you do is we're gonna start the sauce and in the bottom of the pot, and then at a certain point we need to put the rack in, and then the bowl with the fish marinating in it is just gonna sit right on top of the rack, and then we're gonna close it up and we'll steam the fish that way under pressure. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first step is we're gonna make the marinade for the fish. So it calls for 1 tablespoon of fresh lemon. So I have a fresh lemon here. I wonder if I turn off this light if it'll be a little easier to see. Okay. And I have a small little handheld strainer that I use just so that I don't get any seeds in my fresh lemon. So I'm just going to squeeze it in. And honestly, I don't really measure it. I just kind of eyeball it. Okay, so I'm just squeezing this through my strainer so I don't get any seeds. That looks like about a tablespoon and a half, so I'm just going to squeeze the other half as well. It smells nice. And now, if you don't have a fresh lemon and you just have a bottle of lemon juice in your fridge, that'll work too. Okay. Okay, and I'm glad I used my strainer. I wouldn't want those lemon seeds to be in my marinade, so that's a good trick. Now, I need a tablespoon of garlic paste and a tablespoon of ginger paste. And I just buy these and keep these jars in my refrigerator. 1 jar of ginger paste, and similarly a jar of garlic paste, because I love Indian cooking, and I found this website that a coworker of mine recommended, and it's got a lot of wonderful Instant Pot recipes for Indian food. And Indian food uses a lot of ginger paste and garlic paste, so I find it's easy to get these jars. They're about 8 ounces. So I'm doing a tablespoon of ginger paste and a tablespoon of garlic paste added to my lemon juice. Okay, great. Next, I need a teaspoon of a spice called garam masala. This is the one that I use. Of course, there's many different brands. Some people make their own garam masala. I really like this one. So I need a teaspoon of that. And it calls for a tablespoon of a special red chili pepper, but I don't have the one they call for exactly in the recipe. I have another one. It's a milder, less spicy chili pepper, which is perfect for my husband. And it calls for a tablespoon. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon instead of a tablespoon. That way it will be palatable for my husband. Okay, I might just do just a little less than a teaspoon. All right. And then it calls for 1 teaspoon of salt, and I use a little less than a teaspoon just because that's our personal preference, not to have much salt. Okay, and then we need a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric, ground turmeric. It looks like this. It's kind of like a yellowish color. Well, it's a very nice yellowish color to be clear. Okay, so I've got that in there, and now I'm just going to mix it up a little bit. Okay, it smells nice. And then once I mix it up, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, kind of like a brown mix, which is fine. Now, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna open my packet of fish, which I vacuum sealed this when we caught it. And before I cut the fish into a little bit smaller pieces, I'm gonna just rinse it quickly. If you're like me and you forgot to take the fish out several hours in advance and the fish is still feeling slightly frozen, that's okay. You can still cut it and put it in the marinade, it's fine. So I'm just gonna cut it into pieces. So I just want to show you kind of how I cut. I just took my nice filet and I cut it into pieces that are about 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide. And I'm gonna feel for any bones. If I have any obvious bones, I'll pull them out. I try to debone my fish before I freeze it. Okay, now just take the fish pieces, put them in the marinade, and as you put them in, use the spoon to just cover them all with the marinade before you add the next couple of pieces. And it says to do this step and let the fish sit in the marinade for about 30 minutes or so. And it's easy to do this while you do the next steps of the recipe. So I'm just adding all my pieces in here. Want to get them all coated with the marinade. And my filet is probably a couple of pounds, maybe 1.5 pounds. It's just the right quantity of fish for 2 people. Okay. Now I've got all my pieces coated, and I'm just kind of rolling them over and spooning a little bit of the juice from the bottom onto the pieces that are a little bit on the top. Okay, so that's all it is. All right, now I'll be back to you in just a moment with the next step. Now we're ready to start cooking in the Instant Pot. So I plugged it in, and on the front panel here, you should have a saute button. I have the Instant Pot Duo, but I think almost all of the Instant Pots, I could be wrong, have a saute button. Hopefully yours has a saute button. If not, saute on the stove pot and then add your sauteed onions in when you're ready to do the pressurized cooking. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to press the saute button, and you can select the timer. Mine automatically defaults to 15 minutes. We're not going to be cooking, we're not going to be sauteing for that long, but it does take a couple minutes to heat up. Okay, now it's going to start heating up. So I'm going to use some extra virgin olive oil to put in. I'm going to put that in the bottom. Maybe equivalent of like a tablespoon or 2. And I'm going to give that a minute or 2 to start heating up. And meanwhile, what I've done is I peeled and chopped a medium-sized yellow onion, and that's going to be the first thing to go in here. The recipe calls for adding a little bit of salt, but in my opinion, we don't need any more salt because there's a little bit of salt in the marinade, and for our household, that's plenty, but if you want to do it exactly as the recipe says, then go ahead. Okay, so I'm just going to add my onion. And I'm going to stir it up a little bit. And it's not really sauteing yet because it's not hot. But to speed that up, I have the glass Instant Pot lid. I'm going to put that on the top. As soon as it is hot enough and it starts to sizzle and saute, you want to saute for about 5 minutes until the onion turns translucent. And then we're going to start adding the other ingredients. Thank you. While my onions are sauteing, I'm going to prepare my rice. So my friend Karen gave me this microwavable rice cooker, which is fantastic. It comes with a little cup. I do 1.5 of this container of basmati rice to 3 of these with water. It comes out perfectly every time for 13 minutes in the microwave. I also added about maybe a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil to the rice, and I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of our garam masala spice, and that'll give us a nice little extra something to the rice. And I'm going to add just about 1/2 teaspoon of the ground turmeric to the rice as well. Okay. And then I will just pop this in the microwave for 13 minutes. And by the time the fish is done, the rice will be done. Okay. And obviously, my pressure cooker is hot now. It is in the saute mode. I'm going to stir the onions. We're going to add some of the very same things we used in our marinade. So we're going to add a teaspoon each of garlic and ginger paste. You can use fresh if you want. We're going to add a little bit of our spices that were also in the marinade. So we're going to, but in low reduced quantities. So I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of the red pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of the garam masala, 1/2 teaspoon of the ground turmeric. I'm going to add my other ingredients. Teaspoon of ginger paste, a teaspoon of garlic paste, and let that saute with the onions for about a minute. Okay, now I'm going to start adding my spices. And as I said, about 1/2 teaspoon of each. You can adjust to your taste if you prefer. And don't worry about the recipe. I'm going to put the link in the description below. Now, when you add the spices at this point and the saute mode is still on, sometimes they stick a little to the bottom. That's normal. Now I'm going to add my tomato sauce. And don't worry about them sticking, because in the cooking process, with the liquid we're adding, they'll come right up and it'll flavor your sauce very nicely. So don't worry about that. I just like to scrape it as best I can. Give it a quick stir in the pot. And then I'm going to hit cancel. I don't need it to keep cooking now. And I don't want to get the tomato sauce outside everywhere from bubbling. And I can tell you that the stuff that's stuck to the bottom has already come up. Now I've got a 1/3 cup of water. I'm going to pour it in my tomato can, swish it around, and then I'll dump that in. Okay. Now give it a gentle stir so that everything is mixed up. Okay. Now take your rack. This is about, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Put that right on top of your sauce. Then I'm going to take my bowl of fish. I'm going to give it a little bit of a stir again. All right, mix it up a little bit. All right. Now, this is a stainless steel bowl. Set it inside your Instant Pot right on top of that rack. Okay. Now I'm going to take the lid, put the little top to the position that says sealing. Close and lock the lid. Okay. And then I just moved over here to this spot on my counter. Now you're gonna cook this under pressure for 4 minutes. So I'm just gonna select pressure cook, and then I'm going to change my my strength to normal under high pressure for 4 minutes. And again, my top is over to the position of sealing, not venting. Sealing. You only move it to venting when it's done cooking. And now we just have to wait and let the pressure pressure cooker do the work. When it's all done, it'll beep and it'll tell you it's done. Mine has a feature where it beeps and then it stays on warm for a certain amount of time. And it's foolproof. So we'll be back in a minute for the next steps. Okay, the Instant Pot is almost done cooking. I can see from the timer on the front panel that there's 1 minute left. So I wanted to get back together with you because I want to show you how this works. When I first started making some of the Indian recipes from the online website that I found, that's going to be in the description. The descriptions are terrific, but as a brand new Instant Pot user, some of the instructions were just a little confusing. So that's why I just wanted to show you them here on the video so that it's very clear and very easy. When this is done, in less than a minute now, it's going to beep. And then we're going to, for this recipe, it says to turn the spout from sealing to venting. That's called a quick release. So I have found, oh, okay, we're done. I use my spoon, not my finger, because I don't want to burn myself. So this is called the quick release. If you see in an Instant Pot recipe, at the end of the pressure cooking time, do a quick release to release the pressure. This is the quick release. If you don't manually move it over to venting, you can do a slow release and the pressure cooker would slowly turn down the pressure on its own. We're doing the quick release. And at the same time, I'm going to hit the cancel button. Don't worry, this recipe tells you to do this. I just wanted you to be able to see it on the video so you're not confused in case you're new. If you're not new, you already know how to do this. Okay. And I can smell all the wonderful aromas as the pressure cooker was coming up to pressure and while it was cooking, and now that it's releasing, the aromas smell really nice. So I'm excited. So once it's depressurized, it'll be safe for us to open the lid, and I can tell that because there's this little like button here. And did you hear that little click and then the button went down inside the lid? That means it's safe to open. So you just turn it counterclockwise and you can take your lid right off. Now, remember we have the little bowl on top. It's gonna be really, really hot. So I'm gonna use my tongs to grip it really very strongly and pull it out, and I'll kind of show you there. Okay, you can see my fish is all nice and steamed. I'm gonna set that to the side for the moment. I'm also gonna use my tongs and I'm gonna take out the rack, put that in the sink, okay? Smells delicious. Now I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to gently just stir everything up that was in the bottom. That's the rest of the sauce. Okay. And we have a couple more ingredients and a couple more steps. So the first step is that we're going to add 3/4 cup of heavy cream. I have half and half, so that's what I'm using. If you wanted, you could use coconut milk. I would love to try this with coconut milk, but my husband doesn't really like coconut, so I'm using the cream. Maybe one night I'll make it just for myself with the coconut. Okay, so heavy cream, half and half, coconut milk. You can use all of those. Okay, I'm just stirring it. Now, I'm gonna turn this back on to saute mode, right? Because we're also gonna add a spice. It's not really a spice, it's called fenugreek leaves. Now, if you don't have a store near you where you can buy some of these spices, don't worry. You can buy them on Amazon, and sometimes they're cheaper, but if you can get to an Asian or a Latino or Indian supermarket, you'll get the best prices for the quantity. Otherwise, you can also buy it online. So we need a tablespoon of the fenugreek leaves. Now I'm going to stir this gently and mix it with the cream. Then what I'm going to do is, don't forget we have it on the saute mode for a reason. We want to heat all this up and bring it to a simmer for about 2 to 3 minutes. But we also want to mix our fish in there. So the bowl's still a little hot. So I'm going to use a towel. And everything from the bowl, I'm going to put it in the pot. Then I'm going to stir it really well and let that come up to a simmer. So now I've got my big chunks of fish and a little bit of the extra marinade that the fish was in inside my pot here. And remember, we added that cold cream, so now we're just going to bring everything up to temperature and let it simmer for a couple of minutes. And I encourage you not to skip the step of using the fenugreek leaves. They add such a nice flavor to the pot, and even when you open them, you can smell the wonderful flavor. It really does kind of finish off the recipe. So now I see it's starting to simmer. Okay, check my timer. Okay. While I was waiting for the pressure cooker to come up and finish, my rice was in the microwave and that is ready. So take my lid off, and I gave it a little stir with my rice paddle. My rice is all done. I'm telling you, this little rice cooker cooks perfectly. It's probably not what a professional chef would tell you to use. I'm just telling you it works for me and it's easy, and I can do this kind of gourmet meal during the week. Now today's Saturday, but I can do this after work in the evening, even if I had to work late, and I still have a gourmet meal. Now don't forget to stir gently, because you know we do have tomato sauce in here. You don't want that like burning and sticking on the bottom. And stirring gently helps prevent it from bubbling significantly out of the pot. Oh, wait till you see this. It looks amazing and it smells delicious. Okay. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 really nice pieces of fish in here and a small little 5th piece. And I'm hoping there will be a little extra leftovers for tomorrow, even if it's just the sauce with the rice. Now, when you're doing your rice, if you don't want spices in your rice, you don't have to add spices to your rice. I would at a minimum add either a little bit of salt, which I prefer not to do, or a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, which is what I do. And even at the end, you could actually put just a little bit of butter in there to help break it up so it doesn't all stick together. But you don't have to put the spices in the rice if you prefer not to. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit cancel and pressure cooker off. Oops, cancel, just cancel, that turns it off. I'm still new. Okay, and it's still bubbling even though I turned it off, but it'll stop in a minute. I cannot wait for you guys to see this. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and unplug it too, just to be safe. Okay, now what's the best part? Let's dish this up and try it. First, I'm gonna put a little rice in the bowl. Okay. I like to kind of just do it like that. A little bit of rice. Okay. Then I'm gonna use my tongs to take out a piece of fish. I'm gonna put it right in the middle of my rice. Then I'm gonna use my spoon to just get some of this delicious sauce out of here. Actually, I'm thinking a ladle might work better. Yeah, that's the ticket. Stir your sauce up before you pull it out. I'm gonna spoon that on top of the rice. That looks gorgeous. Okay, so I've got my fish right there in the middle. It's piping hot, it looks delicious, smells delicious. Okay, let's try it. You can hear the pot is still simmering too. Just gonna try a little piece because I know it's gonna be hot from the temperature hot, not spicy hot. And I'm gonna get some rice and some sauce and a piece of fish. terrific. I encourage you to try this at home. If you don't have striper, you can get salmon or any kind of meaty type of milder fish would be really good too, because striper doesn't have a strong flavor. So even if you had cod or something of that nature, would work really well. Really almost any whitefish. So I encourage you to try it. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to click more information under the title so that you can get the information on the recipe. And happy cooking. See you next time.